Hello and welcome to Limewedge Lodge predicts the NFL playoffs. This is currently what's going to be the Wildcard weekend, with the Chargers at the Bengals and the Chiefs at the Colts, in the AFC side at least, which is what I'm starting with. Ironically enough, which isn't really ironic, but who actually uses the word ironic correct on the internet, or anywhere for that matter? That's ironic. I leave it up to you to decide if that is actually ironic or ironic because I'm using the word ironic wrong. But anyway, sports, that's why I assume you're here, not my bad jokes. If you were here for my bad jokes, you'd probably be watching a video game series. My video game playing is a bad joke. Okay, enough with the bad jokes, onto the picks. Chargers at Bengals. The Bengals are unbeaten at home this year. And with the way the Chargers played last week against the second team players on the Chiefs, you can't pick them. The Bengals are showing consistency, and they will actually break their drought of playoff losing. Now to another team who knows something about not winning in the playoffs for a long time, the Chiefs. This is one of the hardest matchups. I mean, the Chargers could play an excellent game, come out all guns blazing, and win it, but, it doesn't look that way. But with the Chiefs and the Colts, well, the Colts beat the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, you could say. So that means they're the favorites. Yeah, the Colts aren't always great when they're the favorites. I mean, if I was the Colts, I'd rather play them than San Diego, because San Diego is what I consider lesser team, and the Colts have been bad against lesser teams. They've beaten some of the big boys, but which Colts team will come to play? Is it the one that beat up the good team? The disadvantage for the Colts is the Chiefs now can look back and say, this is what we did wrong. So, as much as I love Andrew Luck, and I think he's the next Peyton Manning, the Chiefs have something to prove. They go into Indianapolis and they get the win, which will send Kansas City to Denver. Oh, shock. Oh, whatever. Other words of shock and all. And the Bengals go to the Patriots. This is interesting because, oh, stupid boy, not this stupid thing again. And now it's going to pop up down here in the corner. It's probably going to pop up in the corner. Whatever. I'm ignoring that thing. I hate that thing. It only does it when I record the windowed version. Don't know why. Okay, anyway. Current playoff picture. Bengals at Patriots, Chiefs at Broncos. The Broncos are at home. Mile High City. The Chiefs have had great success against the Broncos. The Chiefs season will be hailed as a great success simply because of look how bad they were last year. But the Broncos get the win. Peyton Manning, woo! This is where it gets hard. The Patriots are an excellent home team, and I mean excellent. And the Bengals aren't that great on the road. And for that reason alone, it makes me want to say New England, but I have a gut feeling that says Bengals. The Bengals, it's just like they have something to prove. Patriots don't have a lot to prove. Tom Brady doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. I think the Bengals have something to prove. Bengals win. Bengals go and play in Denver for the AFC Championship game, which isn't favorable for the Bengals. They would have wanted Kansas City to win so they could host it, but anyway. I'll save the championship games for last. Over to the NFC, where this week is New Orleans at Philadelphia and San Francisco at Green Bay. First of all, the Saints are an excellent team, but they desperately needed home field. If they had been able to just win the game in Seattle, then they would be, I believe that would make them the number 1 overall seed, because they would have got the division tiebreaker over Carolina, and then have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Seattle. But anyway, that's what ifs. What if the Saints got the number 1 seed and had it all at home? Well, then the Saints would be playing in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't even have to say anything else. It would just be Saints in the Super Bowl. But they're the 6th seed, which means basically no matter what happens, barring a natural disaster and they decide to give the home game to the Saints because the opposing team's stadium's destroyed, something just completely insane like that happening, Saints are going to be on the road the entire playoffs. That being said, Philadelphia, who hasn't been great at home, surprisingly enough, has been being pretty competent at home. Saints aren't that great on the road. It's going to be cold. And, a team that likes playing in the Dome going into Philadelphia. If Dallas had won this game, I would pick New Orleans over them. But in the elements in Philadelphia, Nick Foles, the defense will have a little bit more pep to its step, that will be able to keep up with the Saints offense a little bit better because they don't have those ideal conditions to play perfectly to their style. Philadelphia takes that one. San Francisco at Green Bay is easily the most, as for being equally matched toss-up, not Chiefs, Colts, which team's going to go to play? I don't know, toss-up. San Francisco at Green Bay is more. These are two evenly matched teams. These teams are going to come out, they're going to punch each other in the mouth, and the last one standing wins. Now it comes down to, who do I trust more? Do I trust Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, or Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco? They're playing in Lambeau Field. There's a good chance it could be snowing. So I would have to pick Green Bay here simply because they got the home field advantage and all that. So with the Packers beating the 49ers, that will mean Green Bay will go to Seattle and Philadelphia will go to Carolina. For me, my three favorite NFC teams are the top three seeds, so this is why it's so difficult for me. Russell Wilson is an NC State quarterback. I'm a big NC State fan. That's one reason I like San Diego, and I won't be heartbroken if the Bengals beat them, but I like San Diego, but I don't think they'll win, so I can't pick them. But like I said, Seattle, I live in North Carolina, so Carolina's my team. And Philadelphia, I adopted them as my second team. There's a long story behind that. Not really that long. Before Carolina got a team, my parents rooted for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I've adopted Philadelphia as like my second team to root for behind a Carolina team. So in sports like baseball, when I occasionally watch it, I'll root for the Phillies. But that's the history behind that story. Now's the hard part, the actual picking. San Francisco at Seattle. Now, why did I say San Francisco? I've just got it on my mind that San Francisco, it's so much of a toss-up. I'm saying San Francisco now. Anyway, bad brain, stupid brain. Okay, now you're going to hear the stupid brain pick some things. Some other things. You've heard it pick some things already. Anyway, enough babbling. I'm getting back to the babbling because I said something stupid. Green Bay at Seattle. Green Bay is used to an environment, just crazy environment like Lambeau Stadium. I know it's not exactly the same, and they're against them, but still. Seattle hasn't been infallible at home. They let the Rams hang around. So, unfortunately for me, Aaron Rodgers back, Packers have something to prove. I think the Packers go into Seattle and win. I hate saying that, but Seattle just hasn't had that, I hate to say killer edge. They haven't had that killer edge they needed. It just feels like they're more coasting along, that they peaked in their game with New Orleans. And one of the most deadly things a team can do in the NFL is peak too early. So Green Bay's peaking now. Philadelphia is another team who I believe have reached their maximum potential. They're going to Carolina, which I've been to a Carolina game, given it wasn't when we were great, but it wasn't wasn't a hostile environment like you would think in Seattle. It was more, not saying the fans weren't energetic, because they were pretty energetic, but it was pretty much, it was a Christmas Eve game when we weren't that good facing the Buccaneers, so maybe I just was there on the wrong day, and maybe this will be completely different, but anyway, I don't see the stadium being a huge factor for noise and stuff like that. Even though I'm pretty sure they'd be pretty loud, because I looked at ticket prices just looking, and it was like, for good seats, $1,000 a ticket or something, so that's completely outrageous. Still, even the current price is $90 a ticket. To me, I'm looking at it and say, wow, that is a good bit of money for one ticket. But then that much, Lord have mercy. Okay, babbling again. Philadelphia at Carolina. This one's really difficult as well. Because if Nick Foles gets in a rhythm, he could potentially carve up the defense. But I think a couple players on the defense will be able to make just enough. Carolina will be able to not completely carve up Philadelphia's defense, but Philadelphia isn't known for their defense. Given they haven't stepped up a good bit in the last couple weeks, I just can't see Philadelphia's offense outscoring Carolina's offense with the whole offense versus defense thing. Because defense wins championships. Carolina has an excellent defense. A couple of issues, maybe questions at like safety, and a couple cornerbacks, depending on, what package we're playing. I know a little bit more about the specifics with Carolina because I watch them every week. But yeah, I think Carolina wins that one. Setting up Green Bay at Carolina for the NFC Championship. And setting up Cincinnati at Denver for the AFC Championship. One thing, I don't pick who I think's going to win these games before I come in. I come in and look at them and try and pick on the fly. So that's maybe one of the things I should look at not doing in the future. Trying a little bit of, hey, look, I think these teams are going to win, and this is how I'm going to talk about it, and this is what I'm going to say. But what fun is that? Random babbling and picking on the fly is the way to go. Bengals at Broncos. Unfortunately, I think Denver's just too good. They are just simply too good. The Bengals are hailed as still, team's beloved. Andy Dalton is welcomed as the face of the franchise, and they are the pick to win the division for a few years to come. I like Andy Dalton because one of the things I like to do is I'll point out quarterbacks before the draft. I don't do any videos on this, and I'll say he's going to be good. They should pick him earlier. I pointed out Andy Dalton, I pointed out Russell Wilson, and I've pointed out Mike Glennon. And look at them all right now. I mean, Andy Dalton, look at his team in the playoffs, 3rd seed in the AFC. Russell Wilson, I don't even need to point out why there. And Mike Glennon took the Buccaneers from completely and utterly dead in the water to not completely incompetent, which is why I don't approve of them firing their head coach right now. I say give him 1 year, but that's a different thing for a different video if I decide to make one. But winner, Broncos. Broncos win the game, experience, home field, and I think they're just a more complete team. Plus, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, I would still have to pick him over Andy Dalton. I love Andy Dalton to death, but yeah. And now an even harder game. Green Bay at Carolina. I'm going to pick Carolina for the same reason I picked them last time. Simply the fact that their defense, I believe, is better than Green Bay's. I mean, I know people are going to say, well, what about Seattle? What about Seattle? My main reason for not picking them is I believe they've peaked and they don't have that killer foot on the throat mentality that they had, say, when they played the Saints. It just didn't look like it. Maybe the bye week will wake them up. Maybe not. But Green Bay at Carolina. Carolina, to me, has shown that mentality to win the close games. Plus Green Bay's defense, look at how many points they gave up to Chicago. Then look at how Philadelphia just shut them down. Green Bay has a decent defense, but I think Carolina's defense will win the game for them. Setting up a Denver and Carolina Super Bowl. I'm going to have to pause the recording for just a second to think about this one, so it'll be just 1 second. And what was just a second for you was about a minute for me thinking about this. And while sitting down and looking at it, I want to say, oh, well, Carolina, their defense will stop the Broncos' offense. That seems that's highly unlikely. And then it's just more. Well, Denver's defense isn't that great. Can Carolina's defense stop Denver from scoring more points? Then Denver's defense can stop Carolina's offense from scoring more points. I think the Broncos' offense is that much better than the Panthers' defense. Then the Panthers' offense is better than the Broncos' defense. So, unfortunately, from as much as this pains me, I have to pick the Denver Broncos to win the Super Bowl over my Carolina Panthers. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, the Carolina Panthers getting to the Super Bowl? Oh, well, the Eagles beating the Saints? The Packers beating the 49ers? It's a toss-up. That's why I'm just here, saying my reasoning, my thoughts, my brain. Why do I think this is going to happen? How do I think it's going to happen? Are my picks going to be the same next week? Probably not, because there's a pretty good chance. Well, not pretty. Well, it's a toss-up. Next week, I could be saying, oh, well, San Diego, Indianapolis, New Orleans, and San Francisco all win. And so I have to take everything I have, ball it up in a nice little ball, and throw it away. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed my picks, if nothing else. I hope you said, well, I see, that's reasonable. If not, feel free to yell at me, oh, well, your team stinks, this team stinks, my team's going to win for such and such reason, Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, please, try to explain to me why the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. It'll be fun, well, not really fun. I'll just sit here and stare at the computer screen face palming about how the Steelers, who aren't in the playoffs, are going to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, I've seen a few comments. And I'm kind of on edge with the over-the-top Steeler fans at the moment, to the point of saying the NFL is rigged to keep the Steelers from winning or making the playoffs. The referees making a mistake isn't exactly the NFL rigging the games to keep the Steelers out. Because, I mean, they must have rigged it against them to keep them from winning all those Super Bowls, right? Right? If the NFL really didn't want them to win, they wouldn't have all those Super Bowls. Ah, stupid for me. I'm sorry I'm ranting about that now. If I want to rant about stuff like that, I need to make a separate video for it. But anyway, I thank you for watching. If you agree with my picks, then be like, well, I agree with your picks. They all make sense. I see it, and that's the way I see it going. If you think it will go differently, you can just be like, well, I think such and such team's going to win the Super Bowl because they have better this, and this than anyone they play. Or you can be like, you're wrong because my team's going to win the Super Bowl because I like them and I say so. Which, I mean, I really want to be that way about Carolina. Well, my team's going to win the Super Bowl because I want them to, and phooey on you. But anyway, my name's Wedge Doge, and I thank you for watching. And if you have suffered through 18 minutes of mostly me babbling and just being an idiot, I thank you. And you can say some code word like, the fish smell nice on Christmas Eve if you marinate them with hot, boiling tartar sauce. I don't know. Something about that, or why I'm stupid for saying something like that. And stop babbling, Joel. You've got a very bad babbling problem, and you really need to get that looked at. But yeah, I thank you for watching, and goodbye.